Afternoon. Let me ask you first, what in the world is happening in New England?
Oh, it's total chaos. And this is completely different than anything you would ever expect from a Bill Belichick team because there's just such a lack of consistency. I mean, we could be here for the rest of the show. I just filed like 1,400 words on this topic. That's going to run tomorrow. But it's totally bizarre because there's a lack of consistency with the message. You know, Belichick, clearly they had planned on some type of rotation because that started to get reported in like the hour or two before kickoff. So there was some type of plan in place there. But it's totally bizarre that the quarterbacks were the only ones who knew because it was obvious in the postgame last night that there were offensive players on the team who had no idea a quarterback rotation was going to be in the plans. Then Belichick kind of explained and saying that Mac Jones' health coming back from the high ankle sprain had something to do with that. Now, I totally understand that Jones still isn't 100%, but based on the way he looked the last couple practices from conversations that I had, you couldn't tell that he was injured. I mean, this is somebody who was absolutely capable of playing through it, and I think you saw a couple examples of it during the game last night. The ankle was good enough to function on. So it's like, was Belichick trying to send a message? Was it a short leash? And if it was that short of a leash, why did you feel comfortable enough to start him? And then there's the element of, the crowd was a powder keg last night. They were totally in favor of Bailey Zappi, and that was easily predictable by everything, the tenor of every conversation in the media and elsewhere last week. Belichick knew that this was going to be a pro-Zappi crowd, and he did a disservice to Mac Jones by pulling him after that interception.
So then is this a classic example of the old NFL cliche? If you have two quarterbacks, that means you don't have one and a sign that they just don't believe in Mac Jones anymore?
If they didn't believe in Mac Jones, they shouldn't have started him last night. So there's a reason why nobody plays two quarterbacks. Like Taysom Hill is the only pseudo example of a team that will mix it up in some sort of way. Well, Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones are very similar. They play a very similar style of football. So you're not really doing anything here. And then you can say there's a competitive advantage. Well, that didn't really work against the Bears. So I don't think the Jets are really going to care which one they're prepared for this week.
Jeff Howe is with us here. He's from the Athletic NFL Insider. Let's jump to the 49ers, Jeff. We talked to you the last couple of weeks about Run CMC and what Carolina was looking for. Were you surprised that CMC was dealt to San Francisco last week?
I was, but I forget if I mentioned it beforehand. Like when I was talking with you guys, I said I would be surprised if he was moved, but I thought it was the right decision as long as you got a pretty good amount of value for it. Now, there was no first-round pick on the table, but you look at the equivalent of a first-round pick and that package of picks that the Carolina Panthers got. I understood it. It's hard to rebuild around a running back in this day and age. And it's hard to do it when that running back has a big contract. So trading him, I thought, made a lot of sense for the Panthers. The Niners gave up a lot for him, but I think his value in the Shanahan system, assuming it comes together as quickly as this season stretch run, could make a huge difference, especially for a team that just has the worst injury luck at running back.
Is there a team with a better group of skill position players on the offensive side of the ball now that when you add Christian McCaffrey to what you already had in San Francisco?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, they have probably the second best tight end in the NFL. You could call him the best if you don't include Travis Kelce as an actual tight end. You've got certainly one of the two or three most talented running backs in the NFL. Deebo Samuel is absolutely one of the most talented, dual threat players in the NFL. Ayuk is playing really well right now. So, their skill position players are right up there with just about anybody, of course.
Jeff Howe with us. All guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. I want to ask you about Tom Brady, Jeff. You have a lot of experience covering Tom. You know Tom. He had a very un-Brady-like offseason in camp. Do you think that has impacted the Buccaneers negatively? Is he one of the biggest reasons, if not the biggest reason, for their stumbling?
I think it's part of it, and it was an off season of transition with Tom Brady taking the 40-day retirement, the 11-day leave of absence, I guess you want to call it, in August, and then you've got Bruce Arians stepping down, and there's a lot of issues happening right now, and they were relying a lot on their defense the first, I don't know, 3-4 games of the season. I mean, they aren't now. You can't score 3 points and expect the defense to
Right.
pick you up every week. But, their defense was carrying them, I guess is what I was saying the first couple games. But, it's stunning with the amount of talent. No, there's been some injuries and stuff like that. I think the play calling has been odd in some cases, some games. But it's just they're putting way too much pressure on that defense. And, they haven't been able to deliver, but, you certainly understand that. The offense is putting them in such a bad position. And I just, it's like every week we do one of these roundtables on Sunday, and more often than not, there's a Brady caliber question thrown in there, and it's like, how concerned are you? I mean, I've seen situations where it looked like code red, and Brady pulled themselves out of it, and this is probably an example of when he pulled themselves out of it and won a Super Bowl. I mean, hell, everybody was calling for his job in 2014. That was one of the best Patriots teams I've ever seen. So this is approaching code red territory because their offense, it looks so lifeless, so punchless.
Is it code red in Green Bay where Aaron Rodgers today, with his hit on the Pat McAfee show, called for the benching of some of his teammates that are making too many mistakes?
Yeah, you don't really see that happen too often. But no, they're absolutely in the same type of category as Brady and the Buccaneers because the offense isn't working. It's very obvious that Aaron Rodgers doesn't trust the rookie wide receivers. I mean, there's just too many instances when he's only looking at the veterans. And I've seen that in the past with Tom Brady's Patriots when they had really young teams. 2013 comes to mind when they were really young and Brady was only looking at one or two guys on any given play. When you start off each snap, you've got 5 skill position players. If you're immediately ruling out 2 or 3 of them before every snap, it's hard to consistently move the ball when teams are smart enough to defend you that way.
Last one for you, Jeff. When you look at these 2 trades for veteran quarterbacks this offseason, Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, neither has worked out. Do you think that changes the market moving forward? Teams looking for quarterbacks who are veterans, does that change the asking price or that doesn't really play a role?
Well, no, I don't think it changes anything, but I think teams certainly have to be more cognizant of what they're giving up because, the Broncos gave up a ton. And I spoke to people, I think we've talked about this in the past. I spoke to people at the time of the trade, the day of the trade, that said that the Broncos gave up too much or that the Seahawks decisively won that because of everything they got back for a quarterback on the wrong side of 30. So that was speculated upon pretty quickly. But you know what? You have it was just also a strange offseason. You have the Deshaun Watson trade, and that was totally unique. But it had some ramifications on the way other teams conducted business. But I mean, you understand, you have to get a quarterback. You can't contend or you can't turn your franchise around, in the sense of, let's say, Carolina going for Darnold and then Mayfield. You're trying to turn that whole thing around. You need a quarterback to do that. You look at Indy, you thought that you were a quarterback away, and you still are. And that's kind of been the case for several years in a row now. And then Denver, again, another team that looked like they were a quarterback away. And yes, they paid a steep price, but I can't, even anybody who was skeptical of the price that they paid, I don't think anybody could have ever imagined it was going to start off as bad as it has through the first 7 weeks of this season. So there's potentially jobs on the line in Denver.
Jeff, we appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week, bud.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good week.
Thank you. There goes Jeff Howe from The Athletic. All guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop.